Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean. I'm a travel photographer and I'm currently in Bali, in lockdown here in Bali. Honestly, it's not the worst place to be locked down. We have a pretty sick villa here. We have a nice pool, a nice kitchen, a housekeeper, and the rooms are just lovely. So not an ideal place to be shooting YouTube videos. The room's kind of echoey, but still a pretty cool place nonetheless. But that doesn't change the fact that we are in lockdown. We are in quarantine, a lot of us, and honestly, it's really hard to stay inspired right now. It's really hard to stay creative. It's really hard to be productive. All of these things are things that I've been struggling with, and maybe you've been struggling with them as well. It's honestly really hard to stay positive in times like these where you're not creating something, you don't have any inspiration to create something, and that just kind of piles upon itself, and it's a vicious cycle, and it's really hard to get out of. That's why I've been dedicating a lot of my time making an effort to stay inspired, making an effort to stay creative, because if I'm not out shooting, it's really hard for me to do that. But I think I've been pretty successful so far, and I want to share some of the things that I've been doing to stay creative with you guys. So right off the bat, one of the most important things you can do to staying inspired or staying creative right now is to have some sort of a morning routine. You don't have to be breaking any productivity records, but just doing similar things every day and slowly getting the creative juices flowing earlier on in the day can be a really good way to make sure that throughout the day you're staying inspired, you're staying creative, and you're doing something productive. So for me, I like to wake up around 8:30. I go straight to the shower. I take a shower, brush my teeth, and then I chug a bunch of water, like a liter of water. I just chug the whole thing just because overnight I get dehydrated and I just like to be hydrated in the morning. And then I'll go straight and I'll make my coffee. I need coffee first thing. And while I'm making my coffee and drinking my coffee, I'm usually listening to a podcast or watching a video. So it's not always something like super productive. Sometimes I'm listening to like animal facts. Sometimes I'm listening to news, or I'm reading the news using the Apple News app. There's a lot of different news sources there. I think it's a pretty good news source. Or basically just trying to catch up and absorb something beneficial for me in some way, whether it's interesting facts or knowledge about the stock market or whatever that might be. I like to gain some type of knowledge during that morning routine. After that, I'll do some quick stretching, and then I'll get down and start working at that point. And that's usually around like 10 a.m. I'll start work. So it's just an hour and a half of a routine every morning can really prime you for the day. It can really prime you to have a really productive day. And that's been really beneficial for me, where all the days look the same right now. And it's kind of hard when you get up and you could easily just stay in bed and watch YouTube videos or play video games. It's good to get up and act like you're going to have a productive day, because then you will. But morning routine aside, there's other things that I've been doing to make sure that I'm staying inspired, creative, and productive during these tough times. And for me, one of the most important things is reading. Not necessarily reading novels or reading books, which are fantastic forms of inspiration and creativity, especially in regards to storytelling. But for me, recently, I've been reading a ton of magazines. I'm a very visual person and I like to look at pictures, and magazines have really awesome pictures. So I've been reading magazines surrounding topic areas that interest me. So road cycling, mountain biking, free diving, scuba diving, general photography magazines, travel magazines. There's so many good magazines out there, and honestly, it's a really good way to find inspiration, because not only are you reading about something that you're interested in my case, surfing or free diving or cycling, but you're also seeing some really awesome photographers that are active in that industry. And for me, that's what gets my creative juices flowing. When I'm looking through a magazine of free diving and I see these epic photographs of people free diving in like the Philippines and in Bali, it psychs me up and I get really, really inspired. And I find that when I'm reading these magazines, I'll go and I'll write down stuff. Okay, this location, this place, that seems like a really good place. Maybe after this blows over, we can head out there and get some similar shots. So for me, magazines have been a massive form of inspiration, and I've been using mostly Readly. Readly is a really good subscription service where you get access to a lot of different magazines. I recommend Outside Magazine, Cycling Mag for those of you that like cycling. National Geographic obviously is a big one. And if you can still get subscription magazines, like a physical magazine, I highly recommend that. There's something about holding a magazine in your hand and seeing the images in front of you that makes it more impactful. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard for me to get those things in Bali right now. There's not really any magazine stores, and the shipping lines are kind of messed up at the moment, so it's kind of tough. But if you can get those, I recommend checking out Sidetracked magazine. Really awesome inspirational travel adventure magazine that's just epic, and the photos in there are super inspiring. And then just basically any magazine that you guys are interested in, those are awesome resources for staying inspired right now. If you're not a big reader, I recommend Audible. You guys can listen to audiobooks. There's a lot of good stuff on there, whether it's books like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, or other self-help books, or just novels that are interesting, Harry Potter books. Honestly, just something to get your mind going and distracted. Those are all really good resources for staying inspired right now. The third thing that I recommend is just to create something. And honestly, it doesn't matter what you're creating. It doesn't matter if you're editing photos, you're taking a self-portrait, you're painting something, you're drawing something. Maybe you haven't done an illustration in 10 years and you just sit down and doodle something. As long as you're creating something, I think that's super, super important for getting the creative juices flowing. In one of my favorite books, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, towards the end of the book, the author basically says that we only act when we're motivated or inspired, and actually we should flip that around. Action creates inspiration, and that leads to motivation, and that leads to productivity. So if you flip it around and you just create something and you act, that is really priming yourself for being inspired and being motivated and then continuing to create. So you reverse that vicious cycle into a positive cycle where you're creating and you're just buzzing the whole time and just kind of feeding off of that constant inspiration that you're getting. So go out and create something, and honestly, doesn't matter what you've been doing. I've been editing videos, and I've been editing really old photos of mine, old photos from 1, 2, 3 years ago that I kind of dismissed the first time I went through and culled those photos. Now I found that there's a lot of really cool photos in there, and it's awesome to go back to those and re-edit those. Number 4 is watching short films. And this is something that I've been doing a lot recently, specifically on YouTube. There's so much good stuff on YouTube. There's a lot of crap on YouTube, but there's a lot of good stuff too. So as I said before, I've been really interested in cycling, free diving, scuba diving. So I've been searching those topics on YouTube, something like free diving short film. And then I've been watching those short films, and those have been massive forms of inspiration for me, not only because I'm interested in filmmaking and creating short films, but also just because, once again, they're films about topics that I find really interesting. One off the top of my head that I thought was so good was called Forgiving Pipeline, and it's a short film made by Red Bull about a girl, a female photographer from Hawaii whose father passed away photographing Pipeline, which is one of the biggest surf breaks in the world on North Shore, Oahu, Hawaii, and it's epic. And her dream was to always go out there and shoot those waves where her father passed away, and it just documents that whole process of her training and overcoming the emotional struggle. And I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it. It was so well done, and it was so inspiring, not only from a perspective of, wow, this is awesome, the photography that she's doing, but also all the struggles that she's going through to capture these images that mean something so much to her, you know, and it's a really powerful film. That was really cool. I watched another film that I'll also link down below about Guillaume Neri, which is one of the world's best freedivers. And it's one of the coolest visuals I've seen ever. The underwater visuals in this film are so inspiring, and it just gets me going, man. It gets me super excited to create. So highly recommend checking those out. I'll link those down below. But it doesn't matter what you're interested in, short films around any topic area can be really awesome forms of inspiration right now. So number 5, I already kind of mentioned this, but editing old images. A lot of us photographers, we have old images that we kind of dismissed, that we wrote off the first time we went through our editing workflow. There's a lot of good ones in there. I was just in Vermont, New York, and New Hampshire for a few weeks in autumn, and I culled through the photos when I was there, and you know, I edited a lot of those images, but then I went back and there's so many images in there that, like, maybe I didn't recognize them the first time, but they're super good. They're super nice images. So I've been editing those and just trying to pull out different images from the past. I always feel like I don't have enough photos to post, but honestly, if I go back, there's a lot of really good images in there. So I always recommend going back and looking at your photos with a new eye, you know, seeing them in a different light. That can be a really good way to find some awesome photos. And re-editing those photos is an action that can really inspire you to continue to create. Like I said before, action leads to inspiration, and that leads to motivation, and that is a positive cycle that you want to fall into. All right, the last one I have, and this is probably sounds super cliche, but honestly, exercising with music that you like. The reason I say exercising is because when we're exercising, our blood is flowing, everything is just primed, we feel good, endorphins are rushing, and then with music, that's just compounded. So I've been doing long runs. I'm able to get out and run in a rural area near my house here, and I've been able to listen to music that inspires me. And when I'm beating my body down like that and pairing it with music that really inspires me, after my runs, I feel awesome. I feel so good, man. And it's been so helpful for me for staying positive and inspired right now. When I'm listening to these songs, I'm thinking of ideas, I'm thinking of photo shoots that I can do, of videos that I can create, of things I can read, of content I can consume. And it's just such a good form of inspiration, and that can really lead to creativity. But that's about it, guys. Those are some of the tips that I've been doing to try to stay creative and inspired during this time. It's tough for everybody. I've been struggling with it, and that's why I've put together these list of ideas that you can follow to, overcome some of those struggles and stay inspired, so that once this ends, you can have shoots lined up, you can have things that you can create lined up, and just start shooting right away and get those creative juices flowing at full speed right after all of this ends. But I hope you guys are staying safe. Very difficult times right now all over the world. And I hope that wherever you are, you're safe, your family is safe, and I hope that you're taking care of yourself and staying inspired. So thanks for sticking around to the end, guys. If this was helpful for you, please give the video a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and also leave a comment below. What have you been doing to stay inspired during this time? I would love to hear it, because I am always looking for new ways to stay inspired when we're locked indoors all day. It's not easy. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video very soon here. Hope you have an awesome day.